planning can get very personal, and if they don't like you, you're unlikely to get on. You can't build on agricultural land, yet you want to come and have a look at some of these places that are meant to be agricultural. So some would say that is cheating the system. Just remember, we are all being cheated by the system. I think there's 4 ways in which to get planning. So let's talk about planning. We've never talked about planning before, and the reason for that is it comes with a massive dose of luck. It is possible, but if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So before we moved down here, we looked into planning a lot, and we read lots of books on planning, and there was a book called Field to Farm that we read, and it was really based on you owning or renting 5 hectares of land. You had to own some of it, you could rent the rest, and a lot of people sort of looked at that book in hope that they could get it. Basically, you had this 5 hectares, you could build a barn on it because that size had a permitted amount of land to build a certain size barn, and while you did that you could live on your land for 2 years in a caravan or something of that nature, and the idea is that you could then get permission to run an agricultural business from there. And we've known people that have done it and it hasn't worked. There's been always some excuse from the council about, well, you already live in the village, you can travel. So the planners now, they know farming, or the road will be busier, so we don't want extra traffic on the road. I don't know if any of you watched Clarkson's Farm, where they denied him permission to put a single track on his own land, sort of unheard of. Planning can get very personal, and if they don't like you, you're unlikely to get on. In my view, that is wrong to be able to do that. It's a personal thing. It shouldn't be personal, there should be set guidelines. I had a friend that he bought a derelict building out this way, and if it's not lived in, a building can lose its residential use. And I think this building, it came with an agricultural tile anyway, and he bought it, he started doing it up, putting it back to what it originally was, the original tiles, everything. The planner came out and they saw him working on it, and they said, what do you think you're doing? You know, you need to get permission for that. Anyway, he said, I'm not doing that, I've got enough money to spend on the building. And they said, well, you've got to have oak windows. And so then he spent a load of money on oak windows. Another planner came out and said, can you mind me asking, why did you go for the oak windows? And he said, it's because you lot told me to. And I said, well, they had no right, because it's not a listed building and you're not in the village. We've known around this area where you get housing developers, they'll buy an area of land to put, say, 2,000 homes on, 500 homes, whatever, and they'll say, look, if you give us the permission to do this, we'll build a school. And the council obviously love that, they haven't got to build a school, it's paid for them. This usual thing that you hear around is you can't build on agricultural land, yet you want to come and have a look at some of these places that are meant to be agricultural. They're now filled with houses. They're either enormous things with no garden, or they're horrible little things with no garden. There's no way to be sustainable on what they are giving you, and they're not putting solar panels on them, not that that's the be all and end all, but they're not doing it, you know, sustainably. They want to put a heat source pump in later on that doesn't produce enough heat to keep you warm in the winter, but it's not good enough. People should have the right to say, I want to live a certain way, I'm not going to be harming the environment, and I'm not going to be affecting my neighbours in an awful manner. You know, it's planted out, they can't see it, I'm not bothering them, what's the problem? What gets me is, it's nothing about an eyesore, because out here you can get farmers build an enormous agricultural building that blocks out the skyline, and they don't need permission because they have enough land and they want to store, you know, whatever in it, onions or whatever. They'll get permission on that, but you can't get permission on a small dwelling. So it's not about you making an eyesore, and I can understand if it was an eyesore why the planners might step in and say, no, you can't build a skyscraper there. But we're talking about low impact housing for people. Right, so I think there's 4 ways in which to get planning on land. 1, you are extremely wealthy and you can buy an enormous amount of land, and you can just about probably build or warrant doing whatever you want on that land, and that does matter. 2, you're best friends with the planner. 3, you copy someone else in the area, very local to you, exactly the same method as they got planning, so you can't really be denied, well, I've copied this guy to the letter, which is a rare thing, because it can be something completely else they could say, you know, if you're not like almost in the same road, so that's a rare one. But that would be a way that would possibly get you in. Or the other is you move on your land, no one bothers you and you don't bother them, and you sit there for 4 years and a day and get permission. That's meant to be going up to 10 years. So it's a risky move to make, and I would say if you were going to do it very slowly. Buy your land really early, and this is hard, it's a hard thing to say to people because obviously time is of the essence, we only live so long. But I'd say buy it young, sit on it, the village grows around you, which is what happens around here. It's expanded hugely. First, if you haven't got trees, you start planting some trees. You make the area nicer, and it's not just got to be because you want to hide in there and a screen. Literally just make it better, make it a nicer area. People start looking at it and going, oh, that looks nice, oh, that blocks out that bloody awful wind, or whatever. They start to see it as something that is, are you building a nature reserve and stuff like that. They start to actually think, well, what's going on there? The other thing is then you put a post box up and you start to think about an agricultural business, because you get a post box up and say you start having some seeds delivered, say you want to grow strawberry plants or whatever down there, and you are there every day. You make sure you're there back and forth every day. There's no reason why you can't be there every day. So this is before you go to live on there. So you put your post box up. Obviously, if you're going to put a post box up, you have to call your land something. Now, when you do this, the locals are going to moan. Probably they're going to go, well, what are you doing there? Are you living there? What's happening? And obviously, if you've only just put the trees in, they can see that there's no one there, but there's this post box up. Potentially, you know, so they go, well, there's nothing there, why has it got a post box? If you're having seed delivered, you're looking to the future. You're not looking at a 5-year plan, you're looking at a 10-year plan. So keep the letters that come. Say if you have a mobile phone, perhaps have some mail go there for the mobile phone. Buy a TV licence, even if you're not there. Perhaps start buying a TV licence for the land. And if you are there, obviously you buy a TV licence, or not, it's up to you. Because it's evidence. You know, you might be spending 156 quid on a BBC that you don't want to invest in, but it might help you get planning, and that would probably be the only reason I would buy one. And try and have a bit of an agricultural business, because you are, by doing that, you're changing the use without asking for it, and that also helps. You're moving it away from, it can be still agricultural, but you're kind of changing the use, especially if it's like a yard. I mean, my business comes under arboriculture, but it's linked to agriculture as well. Some places that come up for sale in the past have said things like building with an agricultural tie must be in forestry or agriculture to purchase it with the land that's there. So yeah, you put your post box in, you get some mail delivered to it, and that could be seeds, that can be all sorts of things that will fit in a letterbox. And obviously you want to put a track on your land, and there's permitted rights to put a single track. You're not allowed to tarmac it, but you can have like a MOT stone track, and that's what we did. And people might moan and say they're building a road, and you might have someone come out, but who gives a damn? They come out, they get their moans out nice and early, and then you move forward. Some more years go by, your trees are grown up, your track is in, your post box is up. They don't know any better. They don't know anything's going on. You can then, you give it a few more years, and perhaps you get a container moved on the land to store some wood in, or something like that, or some sort of building, some sort of structure on there, and you test it. Don't spend too much money, test it, see if people go and moan about it. And we got some containers moved on many years ago, and we were storing wood in them, and yeah, we were having break-ins and that into them, and you're getting crime numbers, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you can prove that people are breaking it. It's annoying. So, and it was a cheap method to test the water to see if people were going to complain, and nobody did. And so at that point you start to realise you've broken them now. They've got their moans out. I know that sounds you've broken them. How deceiving does that sound? But it's true. It just prepares people. So they start to think, well, that might well happen. It's happening so slowly, it's not really affecting me. He's not turned up with a load of caravans like it's the Wild West in a circle. That's what you don't want to do, because you know, if you start going there like a dust cloud, like a tornado going in, and it's going to stir up a hornet's nest. You have to do it really slow, improve the land. This is my personal opinion. Some people won't do that. I've seen some people just do it and still get away with it. Still, they'll just stick a mobile on there in full plain sight, have rubbish there and all sorts, and still manage to get around the laws, because the council sometimes have got no teeth. They just sometimes have no teeth, or perhaps they know someone. It's really difficult to know. I've seen people that have had perfectly valid reasons to be on their land get denied. So beware of people that are saying, we can give you the silver bullet, buy this and you'll get it, because even professionals that are, and we've had people call us up that are saying they've got someone in to give them total planning advice on how to get planning, and they have said, we can't do that. If you've been turned down for this, you're not going to get it. They've told them outright they don't know how to get it for them. No one seems to know how to get it, or they don't want to say what you've got to do in order to get it if it's difficult. Right, so you've put your post box up, you've got your trees, so you're already in a wooded area, you've so it's sort of screened it, but you're not hiding. You've got a track that leads on your land, you're using it a lot, which are all good things to get people used to what's going on, what could potentially happen in the future. And you've perhaps put something down there and tested the water, like a shed or something like that, to see if they have a little moan. Now you're not living in it, so there's no problem. You've done all those things, you've done it gentle, and now's the time potentially to put something down like a mobile home, or start building a building. And if it's a mobile home, you need to take the wheels off it, brick up underneath, take the tow bar off of it to make it not movable. So if you're there for 4 years and 1 day, you can get a certificate of lawfulness to be there. That's what you've got to work towards, but the trouble is it might go up to 10 years soon. I'm not sure when. It might not, it might be just an empty threat that they're doing. Depends on what government comes in, things might change. That's the way it is at the moment. Yeah, so it's a difficult thing, especially if you apply for permission and they say no, and then you do it anyway, then you are doing something illegal. And the way I've always heard it, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I read up on it so many years ago, that the way it was if you asked permission and they said no, and you did it anyway, you were doing something illegal. The same as if you are found and you refuse to go, then you're doing something illegal. But by moving on your land, not being pestered, and just basically getting away with it, you aren't doing anything illegal. You're just living on your land. I mean, it shouldn't really be illegal anyway, in my view. But that was the idea behind it, and that's why so many people say it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. So some would say that is cheating the system. Some get quite angry about people doing that sort of thing. They get very frustrated. Well, they've potentially spent 500 grand on a house with maybe less land than you, and they'll say, well, that's cheating the system. They get very frustrated, but what they don't realise is the system has cheated them already. They've paid some bankers an awful lot of money to keep prices nice and high. So if you're one of those people that gets annoyed with people that have found a different way of doing things, just remember, we are all being cheated by the system.